On the 8th of September 2015, a 777 was rolling on the runway and suddenly there was a loud bang. The 777 suffered an engine failure, forcing the captain to abort the takeoff. But it was a bit more than just an engine failure. Let's find out what happened to British Airways flight BA2276. British Airways 2276 was a regular scheduled flight between Las Vegas and London Gatwick Airport. The captain for the flight was a 63-year-old Captain Chris Henke, who had worked for British Airways for 42 years. He was a highly experienced pilot with more than 30,000 flight hours. 12,000 of them were on the Boeing 777. And this flight was intended to be his second last before retiring from his long aviation career. The first officer for the flight was a 30-year-old pilot named Ian, who had been with British Airways for 9 years. During the time, he had 6,400 flight hours, with 3,100 of them on the Boeing 777. The third crew member and the pilot on the right seat was the relief pilot, who was a 45-year-old. And like Captain Henke, he was highly experienced, clocking 10,000 flight hours on the Boeing 777. At that time of the incident, he was flying as the first officer. As the boarding was complete and all passengers were on board the aircraft, the crew started the procedures for departure and got permission to taxi from Terminal 3 at time 15:53 local time and taxied out to runway 07 left for takeoff. At time 12:16, the 777 was on the runway. After having lined up for takeoff, the captain advanced the engines to maximum thrust. As the aircraft started moving, and as it reached just 80 knots, they heard a loud bang during the takeoff roll. And just after the bang, the aircraft started to veer to the left, and the captain announced that he was aborting the takeoff. Veering to the left means there was more engine thrust from the right engines, which is engine number 2, which means the left engine had failed in the engine number 1. The captain immediately retracted the thrust levers to idle and applied the wheel brakes. The first officer noticed that the thrust levers were moving forward because of the auto throttle, so he disconnected the auto throttle. As soon as the airplane came to a complete stop, the captain applied the parking brakes. The instruments were indicating a very high EGT, that's the exhaust gas temperature, on engine number 1. And because of the temperature was so high, it led to an audible fire bell alarm. The captain asked the first officer for the fire engine left checklist, and soon after they started noticing smoke. The first officer asked the captain if he should go into the cabin and investigate. After seeing black smoke and an orange glow from the cabin windows, it was confirmed that the left engine was on fire, and the first officer told the flight attendants to prepare everyone to evacuate the aircraft. After that, he returned to the cockpit and told the captain that they need to evacuate as well. The air traffic controllers noticed that something was wrong with the 777.
Mayday, Speedbird 2276, request fire services.
Speedbird 2276 Heavy, fire services are on the way.
Speedbird 2276 Heavy, we are evacuating on the runway. We have a fire, I repeat, we are evacuating.
Speedbird 2276 Heavy, roger.
Okay, 7 left closed, emergency in progress,
As soon as they decided to evacuate, the forward cargo fire warning light illuminated and the fire alarm sounded in the cockpit. The captain armed the cargo fire suppressors and discharged 3 of the 5 bottles. Now, although the crew was not in panic, but the pilots forgot a very important step. What is it? Watch till the end to find out. As this all happened, all 157 passengers and 13 crew members evacuated the airplane using the aircraft's emergency slides, which injured 18 passengers and 2 crew members, but thankfully everyone survived. Now, coming to the investigation, what could have caused this fire? The investigation was started just after the incident by the NTSB, Boeing, FAA and General Electric themselves. British Airways and the UK CAA also joined the investigation. The initial findings by the NTSB were that there was an uncontained engine failure that had occurred on the left engine and the pylon. On the 6th of October 2015, the NTSB released its initial report, which said that the cause of the fire was the failure of the stage 8 disc web in the high pressure compressor section. And when the disc broke, this led to the main fuel supply line becoming detached from the engine fuel pump, causing the fire. The compressors in a jet engine compress the air coming from the intake and the low pressure compressors to produce thrust. It was all because of a fatigue crack in the spool that was not identifiable by physical inspection, which led to the spool failure. A spool is basically a combination of an engine compressor and a high-pressure turbine that drives it using a connecting drive shaft. The airplane's speed at the time of the rejected takeoff was about 77 knots. The decision to reject a takeoff must be made in time to start the maneuver by the takeoff decision speed, which is V1, and it was 149 knots for the flight. The start of the rejected takeoff maneuver occurred 2 seconds after the bang sound, and the airplane came to a stop 13 seconds after the rejected takeoff, and thus the captain made a very timely decision to reject the takeoff and perform the maneuver in accordance with the company training and procedures. However, the captain did not use the QRH to read and do his evacuation checklist items. The right engine was shut down after the relief pilot noticed ECAS indications showing that the engine was still running. Also, the captain's call for the evacuation checklist occurred after the relief pilot stated that the checklist needed to be performed. Because the captain did not follow the standard procedures, his call for the evacuation checklist and the shutdown of the right engine were delayed by 44 seconds after the evacuation call. Also, the flight attendant stated that some passengers evacuated with carry-on luggage. Thermal damage on the exterior of the airplane was concentrated along its midsection, from the left engine to the right side of the fuselage. On the left engine, the cowling was thermally damaged. The left wing sustained thermal damage in the area between the left engine and the fuselage. No evidence indicated engine derbies impacting or penetrating the left wing structure. However, the interior panels had thermal damage as well, and the windows as well. After the incident, British Airways made changes to the checklist, making it more efficient and time effective. And General Electric made mandatory inspection intervals for the engine compressors. In December 2015, British Airways announced that a team of engineers from Boeing had assessed the aircraft and determined that the damage was limited and it was suitable for repair. As a result, it was announced that the aircraft would be repaired and was returned to service. Airworthiness tests were conducted on the aircraft on 25th February 2016. On 26th February, the aircraft made its departure from Las Vegas at 1:33 p.m. and was flown to Victorville, arriving at time 3 p.m., where it was repaired and repainted. Further repairs and maintenance was performed. The aircraft was then flown to British Airways maintenance in Cardiff on 15 March for a routine C-check, and finally it returned to London Gatwick base and resumed passenger service on 24th March.